Hi everyone, I'm Erin with Create, Dream, and Paint. Today we are learning what is mixed media while we work on a dinosaur lizard art project. You need your paint supplies, collage paper, Mod Podge or glue, and lots of creativity. Let's get started. Hi everyone. So today we're going to be working on a mixed media art project. And a mixed media art project means that it's made out of multiple mediums. So in this one, we're going to be using acrylic paint, collage, and also like markers, pencil crayons, or crayons. So we're mixing all those mediums together to create something, and that's what mixed media means. So we're going to start off with this to create the landscape. And then later we're going to go in and collage a lizard. So let's get started. So as you notice, I'm using construction paper and I've just taped it down to a hard wood surface. So it just makes it nicer. It may bubble, but it won't start curling up. And then when it is dry, if it's still bubbly a little bit, you can kind of lay some books on it. But you can use cardboard, canvas, paper, pretty much anything that you can glue and paint on. So first, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the landscape. So I just want to show you the example one more time. So you can see it's a sky. And this one is kind of a night sky, but in this one, we're going to do a day sky. So you get to pick and choose. And I'm going to show you guys how to create the rocks and the hills, or you can make them green so it's like a grassy area, and then how to paint the sky. So we're going to start with the rocks. So I'm going to just show you, I've got some papers here I took out. And to create rocks, I just use random papers. So this paper, actually, I ended up getting this when we were working our splat monsters last month. So what I do with the rocks is I make a flat surface, and you don't have to, but this is just kind of how I do mine. And you could even draw kind of the shape you'd like your rock to be. And I'm going to cut that out. Or instead of drawing them all the time, you can kind of just go in and create. I'm going to put the flat piece. I'm just going to make one kind of little hill or one rock, just like that. So you can just use your scissors and you can create different shapes. So here's an old envelope. So I'm just going to give it that flat edge. And I'm going to go in and create just some curves that make the piece a rock. You can use all sorts of colors. So I'm going to show you. I've cut out a whole bunch. And feel free to go through magazines, old collage papers. I like to use fabric. This one's done out of fabric. I've got a few of those. And I keep just plastic shoe boxes I get from the dollar store with different colors in them. And that way, when I'm looking for something particular, it's much easier to find. And this is just an old piece of blue jeans. And I think these ones right here is a patterned shirt that my husband had that ripped. So he just gave it to me because I like using this because it's a thinner fabric, so it's easier to sometimes glue. So I've got some of that, and I got a magazine paper. So I got just multiple things. And some of these are from a magazine, but they're little rocks, and I thought that would be really cute. So the first thing I do is I get all my pieces. So if you're still working on cutting out some pieces, feel free to pause the video and come back when you have some. And I'm going to show you how you can fit them all in and create a landscape. So I'm just going to start showing you. Usually I work, if I'm just doing the landscape and I'm going to be painting the sky, I work from the middle down. And the reasoning why is because when we start to glue on the pieces, if all of a sudden we work from the bottom, see, that's a perfect cut piece, but if we went to the bottom and then I added one on top, it's going to not work out. So if you work from the middle down, you still have those great shapes. So, and I don't always go in and cover all of the paper because I might go in and add some more rocks later. And I kind of like having a little bit of that background color still there. So I just kind of move around and I move my pieces just like a puzzle. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of like a puzzle. You'll just know when it's working out. Okay. So I'm working my way all around. Kind of like that. And then I think I'm going to add a piece of paper here. And then I'm going to go in and add those mini rocks we have. Because we're just creating the landscape. We're not adding the lizard yet. And just so you know, you can just do a landscape. If you didn't want to add the lizard, you could add some trees. You could add a stream. You could add a road. You can add a car. You can add anything you want. It's a nice thing about art. There's really no rules. It's what you want to create. So I kind of like the way that this is put together. Just like this. So that's how I start off. Is I kind of come up with an idea. And don't feel like you have to be perfect. You have to paste the pieces exactly where they need to be, where they are right now. Because there's going to be some probably movement in the piece of fabric or the piece of paper. So be nice to yourself and don't get upset over things like that. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to take our Mod Podge or our glue stick or glue, and we are going to start gluing the pieces down. So what I'm going to do is just kind of nicely take some of the pieces that are at the top down here so they don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my Mod Podge and I'm going to add it to my tinfoil. So I'm just going to paint the back of the pieces that I'm going to put on. So I have this fabric and I'm going to put this down here and I'm going to just paint the back with my glue. So feel free to use your glue stick, whatever you have. Okay. And then I'm going to I usually use my brush to kind of lift that little piece off. And I will put that about halfway up. I might have put it up a little higher than it was before, but that's okay. The nice thing about art is it is very forgiving. Okay, so the next is going to be the denim piece. So I'm going to go in, and denim can take a little bit more glue just because it's a bit of a heavier fabric. So look and see the types of papers that you can find. You could use gift wrap, you could use ribbons, you can actually even use this stuff. This is like a ribbon, but it's like the bags you get at the grocery store with oranges in them. So you can even use that. And if you don't like the color, you glue it on to your work surface, and then when it dries, you can paint over top of it, and it gives you an amazing texture. And drywall tape, that can be awesome to use. I use drywall tape actually in quite a bit of my paintings. I will use denim because I like the texture when I paint on it. And I also use just textured ribbons, lots of different things. Okay, so I'm going to go on to this one now. And I always use aluminum foil, and I also use aluminum foil with a lot of my paints. And the nice thing is the paints, because they're acrylic, they dry really quickly. And because of that, I wait for them to dry, and then I put them in a little bin, and I can fold them and use them for Mod Podge later. And then you're not just throwing them out all the time. I like to try to save some things. I think I kind of lost how my design is, but I'm just going to work with it. I'm going to trust myself, and that's sometimes what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going in, and I'm getting another piece. When you have little pieces like this, and it's hard to pick them up, if you wipe your brush off, you can pick it up with your brush. I do that quite a bit, and it helps you from getting your fingers all messy. Okay, so we're going to stick that down there. And then, you know what? I think I'm going to put that one right here. And I think, oh, that's a pencil marker. Okay, we're going to do that. And I'm going to wipe my brush off and pick up the piece of paper. Put that down. Perfect. And just feel like you can try out some landscapes. You don't have to even put anything in them. You could just end up with the sky and the ground. That's how I do a lot of my landscapes. I like them nice and simple sometimes. If I'm trying to play around with colors and see what looks good together. So give that a go. You know what? You could look outside or get a picture of somewhere you really like to go with your family. And then ask your parents if they can print it out, and you can use that and do a landscape collage and add some paint. So do mixed media. Use collage, use paint, use whatever you'd like to try. I'd have to say I've been having lots of fun coming up with new classes. But I'm going to ask everyone a favor. I'd really like you guys to send me an email or send me a message on Facebook or Instagram and let me know how you're finding the classes. Sometimes when I'm teaching live, it's a lot easier for me to get an idea of where everyone is. If everyone feels like, oh, you know what, I could do something a little bit more difficult, or this is perfect, or I'd like to do something a little bit easier. It helps me come up with the classes that I'm going to be bringing to you. So next month, I'm really excited. I've touched on the color wheel a tiny bit, but we're going to be doing a lot of talk about how to mix our colors. We're going to go and learn about color value like we've already learned, but a bit more in depth. And we're also going to learn about color temperature, or how to make a color with two other colors. So I'm so excited. So we're going to be working on that, and we're going to be working on that with acrylic painting. You guys have been doing such a great job, and acrylic is a wonderful way to learn how to mix color. And then the month after that, I'm hoping we can move into watercolor. And the reasoning why is because watercolor is very portable. So if you guys go someplace in the spring and in the summer, you can do what I do. And what that is I will take, I'm just gonna see, it goes that way. I will take my watercolors and just some paper, and I can be in a car, I can be anywhere, because the paints aren't messy. They're really easy to use on the move. So if all of a sudden I want to paint something, I paint. Or if I want to see something outside and go sit outside, I can paint a landscape. And what that is called is painting en plein air. So I am going to teach you guys some of that this spring and summer too, on how to go out and pick a good spot and the things you should take. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if you notice, I'm folding my aluminum foil, because when it gets too sticky, it starts making a mess of the front of my paper. So I just keep folding it when it gets too yucky with glue, and it just helps me not to make too big of a mess. So I'm also looking at, what do we want to learn to paint? Everyone has probably some different ideas. So I know somebody brought up a dolphin, and there's somebody that wants to learn how to paint a unicorn or a horse and a mermaid, things like that. But I'd really like to hear from you guys what you would like. So give me some ideas, because I'm going to work that into the classes. We might as well learn on something you're wanting to make. And I can definitely do that. That's why we're a group of people that we can let each other know what we're finding in class and what we're not, and we can work together to create the best possible classes we can. I'm really excited for that fact. I think that being online can make it very easy, because if you don't feel like painting on a Saturday morning and you want to paint on a Monday or Tuesday, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, where are we? Okay, I'm going to add that one there. See, I changed it up. I had this all chosen out, and that's just what I do. what do I have here? Oh yeah, this one. So I'm gonna put that one there. Just fold this one more time. We still have some more collaging to do, but after we're done this part, we're gonna go in and we're gonna work on the sky. So I'd like you guys to think, would you like a nighttime sky or daytime sky? What color sky? The examples that I'd shown you at the beginning, it was on black paper, so I used a light purple to kind of change it up a little bit, so it looked still like a nighttime sky. But I thought, you know what, I'd like a daytime sky in this one. Just to show you that you guys can make these choices. You can take a project and make it your own. And that's the best part about art. I think I need maybe just one more rock. So I'm gonna cut this flat. And I'm gonna cut a curve in my paper. Oh, I like that right there. And then we can go and we can paint some more rocks in here if we felt like it too at the end. But we'll see what we're thinking. We'll see how everything kind of fits together and if we should. Play it by ear, right? Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go clean up my glue mess and I am going to get my paints together. So you decide on what color would you like that sky. I'm gonna do a blue sky. It's blue paper, but I'm gonna change up. Remember, I've told you how it's fun to play with the values. So I'm gonna change the blue a little bit. So I'm gonna add some blue and I'm gonna have some white and some gray. Whatever color you add, I would add some white and gray to your palette so we can change up that color. So purple, blue, yellow, gray, green, whatever you want to paint that. Come back with that color, white and gray. So I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back. So we're gonna start working on the sky. And if we want to look, I've decided on blue, and the gray is to dull it down if I want, and the white is to make it lighter. So I'm gonna get my brush. And I'm gonna create a color. Oh, it was sitting there for a little too long, I think. Because the white is kind of, sometimes it gets a little filmy on the top. So you just move that. It's really actually plastic is what it is. So you just pull that plastic piece off and then you go from there. So I really like this blue. But I want to see what it looks like if I add just a tiny bit of gray. It dulls it down a bit, and that's what I like. I don't like super bright. Okay, I'm going to add some water. Don't make it soupy, but... Okay, so I'm going to go in, and I'm going to start by just doing some steady lines of color. I would like everyone to try something new. So I like when I work on an art project to try to use my brush differently. So what I'm doing right now is I'm starting off with a wet brush and I pull it all the way down, and then you can see how it gets when it's dry. You know what, I'll start the other side of the brush right there. You can even try moving your way back. Kind of like that effect. So I'm going to keep going in and doing the same thing. So I'm taking my brush and I'm pulling it across till it dries out, and then I'll flip it. Try it again. Just experimenting and figuring out what exactly you can do with the paintbrush and the different shapes you can make by the different brush strokes you use. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue. And I'm going to add a little bit of gray again. And I've changed the color a little bit. So I did that on purpose. I don't always like using the same value of color because I find it can start looking very flat if you just painted one color. So we're going to start playing with how we put on the paint. Perfect. Okay. So go in. You know what? I'm going to try in the middle. And I'm going to try down here. Just use a dry brush to get the sides. And this is the way you learn to paint. You learn on how you can use the brush and what kind of effects it leaves on the substrate, which is the paper or the cardboard or the canvas. And you'll find too, the material you use can soak up paint a little differently, right? This is bubbling a little bit. And I kind of like that. I like sometimes the texture on some of the pieces I'm working on. Not my oil papers or my watercolors. Those, I kind of work really hard to get them nice and flat. But if I'm doing like a collage or mixed media, I sometimes like that stuff that can happen that you maybe don't mean for it to, or you can't make it exactly perfect. Okay, I'm gonna do that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go in with my blue and I'm gonna add it to my mixture, just like this. So it brightened it up a little bit, right? I might lighten it just a tiny bit. I don't want it as light as it was before. I'm gonna add some water, and then we're gonna go in and just do some different mark making. So I'm gonna just kind of pull up some rectangles, different areas, just like this, just to break everything up. Just changes it up. And we can see in kind of what effect. So if ever we're kind of like not sure, what I do is I'll put my picture way on the other wall and I'll look at it from far away. When I work on an easel, I walk away from my easel quite often to look and see what things look like farther away. You'll sometimes find that you'll see more clearer on what you'd like to do. Sometimes when we get so focused and we get so close to our art piece, it can make it quite difficult to see where our problem spots are, or if there is any problem spots. Okay, so I'm just gonna put some here. And like, I am literally just looking and in my heart saying, okay, where do I put the next bit of color? I'm not getting stressed out about it. I'm not thinking there's a right way or wrong way. It's just working on it, right? Okay. And just keep working around. And then we're gonna maybe add a cloud. I'm gonna show you a cool way to use your brush to do that. I'm just gonna finish working my way through here. And then I'm gonna do something while we wait for this to dry. I'm thinking that this, because of this, is looking quite plain, like that plain bit of construction paper that I left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean my brush off. I still want a little bit of a blue tinge because really it's gonna help to balance it with the sky, but I want it to look gray, like rocks. So I'm gonna take my gray and I'm gonna take my white and I'm gonna make a really kind of a nice, maybe rock gray. And I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna take the blue that I had in the sky and I'm gonna add just a little bit. And the reasoning I did that is because it will change the tint of your gray a little bit to match the sky. We're gonna talk more about that and why that is next month. So I'm just gonna kind of work my way through. I'm just gonna work in kind of cubes. Sometimes I work in circles, sometimes I work in triangles, but today it's just gonna be cubes. So, because we're just putting our paintbrush down. And if you have just a regular kind of paintbrush, like, say like this, like a pointy one, that's okay too. You could go in with that. Just leaves you a different kind of mark, right? I'm gonna make a rectangle just because I feel like it. And it's not because of any reason at all you can do this. Okay, just like the way, yeah, let's try like kind of a weird square, kind of rock shapes, aren't they? Let's try some down here. There we go. Okay. Add a little bit of water and make sure I roll my brush so it's a nice point. I want an exact kind of mark and a shape. Perfect. If you notice, if you look at my art page, a lot of my landscapes, I use big shapes. I can get into the detail like grass or branches, but a lot of the times I like looking at everything like it's a big shape. We all find our artistic voice, and it's also very different. So what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for the other. And it's just because we're different people. It's kind of like how if I get everyone to paint the exact same thing, nobody's paintings are going to look the same. Nobody's. Here we go, just like that. I really like that and how that turned out. Okay, so the sky is, oh, it's just about dry. We're going to go with the fact I think it's pretty close. And I am going to take the brush. I'm going to clean it out really good so it's not got blue in it anymore. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to use white. And I'm going to add a bit of water just because it's starting to dry out. I think I kind of put the paints out before I should have, which, oh well, you live, you learn. And then we're going to create just a few tiny clouds. So I want you to go in and see if you curve your brush, so you bring it around like a circle, kind of like an upside down C. I like to do that. And then the bottom of a lot of clouds is flatter than the top. Not always, like storm clouds can really change, but I kind of go through and I create more of a curve on the top, and then I go with a straight line. And then I might add just a little bit underneath, kind of to break it up a bit differently. But try lots of different things. Okay, we're going to try one more time. 1, 2, kind of the upside down C, right? 3. Let's try a fourth one here. 4. Then straight across. And then this one, I'm just going to fill in. This one I didn't. I left it very piecey, but I just want you guys to see how everything can look different. And I also sometimes, when I'll make like a cloud, I will take white paper and kind of like do a little inset, kind of like I did with these 2 rocks. And I'll put a little cloud with a collage. But I also have the lizard to put in, so I don't think I'm going to do that. And I think I'm just going to do one more little cloud. It's like a hot day in the desert or wherever this lizard lives. There we go. Very cool. Okay, so we're done really for the landscape, but I want you to see that this is an art piece right in itself. We're adding something to it because we're choosing to. But if you want to leave it like this, you definitely can. You could put some trees, or you can put some plants, or you can put some more rocks, or put some birds in the sky. That's the thing with art. If you know how to use your mediums, you'll be able to create anything. And that's what I want to be able to do for you guys, to make it so you're not scared to try different things. Art is experimenting. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to move this to the side for just a second. Let it dry some more, and I'm going to show you the example. And I'm going to show you that I created the lizard as a collage, but that does not mean you have to. I'm going to show you how to create a pattern by using shapes to make this, but you could also paint this on your landscape, or you could create a pattern and you could trace it out on your landscape and paint in your lizard. It's not something you have to collage. So we're going to take a look here. And I always, when I make a pattern, I do try to use thicker paper. You can use some cardboard or some construction paper just because it's a bit thicker and it's easier to trace. But you don't have to. You can use a really thin piece of paper and it'll just take you a little bit longer to trace it out. And I want you to look. Remember, I told you guys that when you look at something to draw, don't get worried about how does this work. Worry about the shapes that you see in the image. So when I look at this lizard, I look at an oval. An oval would fit into the body. Kind of a crazy curved triangle. and then rectangles for the legs. So we're going to try that, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to create an oval for the head, an oval for the body, a weird kind of curved triangle for the tail, and then legs out of rectangles. And I know sometimes when we look at an image, we want to look at the detail, but the detail can get so confusing that we just decide not to even try. And that's why I try to break things down into really simple shapes. So this way I would connect the oval into the other oval. I'd connect this oval into the tail. And then for the feet, I kind of have these lizard kind of feet, which doesn't mean you need to. You could put shoes on or big bulky feet or leave it as a rectangle. But I'm going to create 2 different triangles in that rectangle. And then I know that pattern. It gives me a starting point, and it doesn't mean that I can't go in and change this lizard to look whatever way I want. But what I need to do is decide on the shapes that are going to go into it first. So next time you look at something or a picture and you want to know how to draw it, I want you just to look at it and see what shapes can I fit in it. Okay. So what I would do now is I will go and cut my pattern out. And then I would have my lizard, or I would trace it onto my landscape and start painting. But to make things go a little bit quicker tonight, I already cut out a pattern. So the way that we use our paper, so I'm just gonna pull out this paper. And I'm going to put my lizard right on here. I'm actually going to move this because sometimes it's hard getting everything in the picture. But here we go. I'm going to trace all the way around. And you can keep this pattern. Like I keep most of my little patterns I do in a container because I know my little guy and my kids, sometimes when they're looking for something to do, they can go in and go, oh, look at this. I could go cut some of these out and then make something out of it. Here we go. Or when my kids have their friends over, we love to make things. Like we love to make crafts and lots of different things and lots of paintings. And that's a good time to get it out. So the line is done by the pencil all the way around, and I cut that piece out. But I have already done one, just because you probably don't want to sit here and watch me do that. So if you are cutting out your piece, I would go ahead and pause the video right now, and that way you can get all your, like the whole lizard drawn out, cut out, and then we'll be ready for the next step. And the next step is going to be bringing out the landscape. Oh, for some reason that's kind of sliding. And I find the perfect spot for the lizard to kind of live. And we're going to do the spikes a little bit. But I'm noticing that my paper is still a little bit damp. And one very important thing to do is when you are doing mixed media, if you are gluing or painting on top of something you just glued, you need to wait for it to dry. And the reasoning why is because as soon as you put paint or glue on wet paint or glue, you're going to start finding that it can lift right off your paper. And it can make such a mess. And it's so sad if you love what you're making. So I'm going to go and wait for this to dry. And I'm going to be right back. Okay, so we're back and my paper is finally dry. It took actually quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I have my lizard shape here, and I am going to, actually that's really cute too. So it could be either, but I kind of like, oh. See, this is the thing about collage, is you can change things up. I think I'm still gonna go with this. I like that direction. So I'm gonna flip that guy over, and I'm going to put my Mod Podge down here. And of course, getting it to work sometimes is not always easy. I went to the store to get Mod Podge today, and oh my gosh, I found this one tiny, tiny little bottle. I couldn't believe it. Usually there's a whole bunch at the store, and big ones. So I'm gonna have to go to Walmart tomorrow and see what I can find there. In Moose Jaw, it's kind of been a bit difficult because I don't have an art supply store very close. But I do go to the art store sometimes in the city, and I can get more things. But I found a few places here in town that carry everything, which makes life so easy. So remember, it's kind of stuck on there, and I don't want to like reach in through the glue. So remember, I wipe my brush off. Oh, it's not going to work. So if it doesn't work, I lift the side with my brush. Oh, and be very careful, because sometimes they get stuck and you can rip them. Okay, and we're gonna find, I love this. It's kind of sad that I'm covering up some of that landscape. And oh, I like that landscape a lot, but that's okay. I can create another landscape. But just slowly kind of work your way through. And you know what? Sometimes you'll find, like especially if I'm kind of like gluing it to the fabric, it's not sticking because I didn't have enough glue on. It takes a little bit more because the material especially can be very porous. And what that means is it sucks the glue up into the fabric, and that way it's not left on your paper. It's kind of defeating the purpose. So I'm gonna just go and use my back of my brush to kind of do this and then work this piece down again. And I go through, if I do a collage, at the very end of the collage, I'll go over all my corners, because sometimes you think you have everything so nicely glued into place, and for some reason there's a little edge that, see, look, I'm just going to show you now. One of those little edges is lifting on that rock. So I'm going to put just a little piece under. And that's the nice thing about a brush, right? You can work your way through. Perfect. So the spikes, I thought, you know what? What's a lizard without spikes? I thought that would be really cute. So I did, like, I just cut out some triangles out of magazine paper, and I'm gonna just put them on. So first of all, I kind of go through and just see what belongs where. Oh, and see, this is what's just happened. There's a piece of my paper. I love how that happens, like while I'm making this, so at least I can show you it happens. Show you what to do to fix it. Oh, I got it. So I'm just looking, because I'm just wanting to see how get all these pieces. Oh, I think that one's gonna go here. This one, it kind of looks like a mohawk. All these spikes. And you can do all sorts of different colored spikes too. Or you could do curves like scales. You can look and see what kind of dinosaurs you can find too, and do dinosaurs. That would be kind of cool. Okay, so I'm gonna look, I'm gonna show you, because they're really little pieces again. So I'm gonna paint this with Mod Podge, but I'm gonna wipe my brush off, and I'm gonna pick it up with my brush. Just makes it a lot easier. Please send me in the pictures though, of the lizards or landscapes you do. And let me know how you're finding the program, and if you need it more difficult because I need to figure out if I should add one more level or how you're finding the classes, because the only way I'll figure that out is through what you guys tell me. Just because I'm not in the room watching you guys learn all the time. I am for Zoom, but I really like keeping the Zoom for our whole family to do an art project together. It's not always going to be like that because there's going to be some more technical classes, but I think it's a great thing when we can get together and paint and everyone is there. It's a great community building activity, and to know you're not the only one, you know, painting or that likes to paint or make different crafts. Okay. And if there's some different mediums you guys would like to learn too, if you can let me know that. So we're going to be doing acrylic and a little bit of collage next month. And then the month after that, we're going to be doing watercolor. But I'd like to do printmaking as well, because we can do printmaking just out of craft foam and water-soluble markers and paint. So we're going to play it by ear, but I would love you guys to let me know, like, what are you interested in? Because if you don't let me know, I won't, you know, I'll just keep going kind of with the things I'm thinking. Okay, I'm doing this. This is bad. You shouldn't do it like that, but I did. But that's the last piece we're going to glue on. So I'm going to make the eye now. So I'm going to finger paint. Yes, I know. It's probably a little kid thing, but I love to finger paint. There's actually an artist I follow that is super famous out of the States, and all of her paintings are finger painted. So I'm going to go and I'm going to dab off a little bit of white paint so it's on my finger, and I'm going to, right? It's almost like print. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but it actually doesn't look bad. My finger just slipped, but I kind of like it. Actually, I like it a lot better than the one I did with the small eye, so that's good. I'm going to wait for it to dry. So I'm going to go in with some markers while we're waiting for that to dry, and I'm going to show you some fun stuff. So right now I'm working, these are like the Crayola markers you guys have. It's just my version, kind of from the art store. So I use this for a lot of my mixed media stuff. And I like to go in and just do random designs in some of the shapes I make. If you look at some of my art, you're going to notice that a lot of it are shapes and random designs. And that's kind of what I like to do. I like to doodle on my art. Doodling, oh my goodness, I'll tell you, my whole life I have driven everyone nuts, because if I'm talking to someone or I'm on the phone or if I was in class when I was a kid, in classes as an adult, I don't even notice, but I doodle. Every one of my books is covered in doodles, and that is not necessarily a great thing to do, but I think that's why I like to doodle. So there is some artists that do this, where just do random little designs, but you can also write little words or sayings or quotes in your art, which is kind of fun too. I'm working on an owl paintings. It's like 3 paintings that go together, and I have looked up symbolism of owls and what they're kind of known for, and I have that actually written in to their shapes and their feathers, and you're only going to be able to see them if you look really carefully, and that's going to be in kind of doodles, because doodles is kind of where our brains are, right? Like when we're talking to somebody or we're listening, we're just doing random flowers or this or that, and it's really just, I think it's kind of neat. So I'm going to actually put one more over here. I don't know why, but just because I felt like it. Perfect. And I'm wondering if we should do some in the sky. If we could kind of just trace the outline, or what's the closest of the outline of the clouds. And it's not going to be perfect, right? Because my clouds are kind of like all over the place. But just add to the doodles. Just like that. If you don't like it, paint over it, because that happens to me sometimes where I'm like, why did I do that? I just wrecked something. Nothing is ever wrecked. Sometimes we might need to walk away for a bit and then come back and fix it, but we can always do that. Okay, so what other doodles can I do in the sky? I've got the rocks, I got the land. I wonder, you know what I could even do? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a little plant. Just to show you can. You could do a flower. Maybe I'm gonna do a plant over here too. Okay. And then I've got some blue. I want to find a blue that's gonna kind of work with the sky. Yep. Don't want something that's super different. I'm just gonna do some random doodle shapes. Just some interesting shapes in the sky. Do you ever go outside in the summer and sit and look at the clouds and the different kind of shapes they make? I love it. Or the different kind of blues in the sky and how they kind of make shapes too. I used to do that as a kid all the time. I grew up in Saskatchewan, and always places where I could see the sky. Here we go. Let's see what kind of shapes you can put in there. And then I'm going to look, because I think his eye is dry and we can move on. But I just want to finish. I'm really just working around the shapes I have. Just kind of add some interest, right? And you don't have to. Some people might look at this and go, that looks messy. But that's what kind of art I like. Okay, so I'm going to look. Yes, that is nice and dry. So I'm going to look for my black marker that oh, luckily it's over here. I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, so I'm going to put the pupil of the eye. And because the eye is so big, maybe I make the pupil really big too. There. Perfect. Look at him. He's kind of cute. I like it. Okay. And then I think I might add kind of a mouth. And that is it. So you can go in and do all sorts. You could paint on this paper. You could use your markers and do little different doodles like I was saying. So send me in a picture of what you create. I'm super excited to see it. And please let me know all your different ideas. I so am interested. Okay, so I'll see you next week.